Hello and welcome to another video. And there's been some really big news with Microsoft in the last, I think this news hit last Friday. So it's been almost about a week since it happened. It was really fresh on Friday, so I did not make like a solo video on it, and we discussed it on the most recent episode of the podcast. So obviously I encourage you to go check that out, but there's been stuff that has happened since. I want to dive a little bit deeper into it because, for starters, this really does actually feel like the end of Xbox as we know it. And it needs to be discussed, man. For whatever reason, if you're living under a rock and you did not know this, Phil Spencer is retiring. He is no longer the head of Xbox. And Sarah Bond, who is the head of like the games part of it, is no longer with the company. She has resigned. And they have brought in a new CEO of the Xbox division, which I should really have her name here. So let's grab that really quick. I think it's like Asha something. Asha Sharma was appointed the new CEO of Microsoft Gaming as of last Friday. She succeeds Phil Spencer, who's stepping down after a long tenure. Now, it's important to know that Phil Spencer, he has been with Microsoft since for 38 years, and he's been the head of Xbox since April of 2014. So, that's 12 years he's been the head of Xbox. The reason I want to make this video, the reason why I want to discuss this is because obviously the last year and a half for the Xbox as a product, as a division, as a consumer brand has been really lackluster, to the point that I don't even turn on my Xbox anymore unless I'm watching a 4K Blu-ray. The last game I played on the ecosystem was Doom: The Dark Ages. I just haven't I felt any need to do anything there. And this is coming from somebody who primarily was in the Xbox ecosystem for 20 years. I created my Xbox Live gamer tag on the launch day of the 360, where I jumped in and never looked back. The 360 generation, obviously, I talk about it on my channel all the time. The Xbox 360 is my favorite console and console era of all time. And it's, right below it is Super Nintendo. And because that generation really brought me back to console gaming. There have been a couple years there that I was really into PC gaming, and the 360 is what brought it back for me. And I loved the Xbox and was really ingrained into that brand. I didn't think the PS3 was a great direction for Sony to take at the time. I eventually got one in 2009, and it was primarily a Blu-ray player, and I played the exclusive games like Uncharted, Heavy Rain, Last of Us when that came out. Those experiences I played, but I, primarily was an Xbox person. If it was a multi-platform game, I would be getting it on Xbox. When the PS4 and the Xbox One were revealed, obviously everybody knows the story. Like, Don Mattrick really basically blew everything for Microsoft to the point that it was such a disastrous launch. They brought Phil Spencer in as the head, and it really felt like that era, like I'd say 2014 to about 2020, like pandemic, it really felt like Microsoft was turning the ship around and really making this brand something that everybody could enjoy. I would always argue they were the most consumer friendly brand of the big three. They were constantly like, if they were to change something and the consumer base didn't like it, they would be quick to change it back. They pioneered backwards compatibility on the Xbox One, and that obviously was carried forward with the Series X. But like, backwards compatibility, obviously you can't put every 360 disc into the system and play every game. There's licensing issues, but they did a lot. They made a lot of those games backwards compatible. They even went back to the original Xbox. And now with the Series X, if you have one that has a disc drive, most of the Series X do, you can play 4 generations of Xbox games on that system. It's really, truly an incredible thing. Remember when Phil Spencer took over too, like the first thing he did was he uncoupled that system from the Kinect, making the system have a $400 SKU to compete with the PS4. He turned that brand around at a time where that brand pretty much was dead in the water when it launched the Xbox One. Like, even as someone who picked one up day one and, was so entrenched and so ingrained in Microsoft and the Xbox, I bought a PS4 a year later, and by about 2016, once the PS4 Pro hit, I kind of got to this point by the end of that generation. I was playing games on both, but I was really kind of playing games on PS4 more. And then the start of this generation, Series X, Game Pass, obviously, I really was primarily in that ecosystem again still. And just their decisions, the last couple of years have really been disasters for Microsoft. They fostered this whole culture of like, well, the games are coming, but then they never came out. There are games that took way too fucking long. And if you look back on it, unfortunately, Phil Spencer has a tarnished legacy at this point. He came in really strong and made a lot of really smart decisions to right the ship around. But unfortunately, he made some really bad and almost questionable decisions during his tenure towards the end here. A lot of them you could probably point and say, like Satya Nadella, the head of Microsoft itself, probably had a hand in those. But I do think one of the biggest things that Phil Spencer had that kind of just overtook him was the whole Activision Blizzard deal, which obviously was like 2 years of that man's life, going back and forth with like the FCC regulations and the boards and all that kind of stuff. And then when it finally happened and they got Activision Blizzard, they haven't really done much with it other than slowly trickle games into Game Pass. Call of Duty has not been the bread and butter that I think Microsoft wanted it to be in 2026. I know I have not played a Call of Duty since it's probably been 2 or 3 now, but I know the most recent Black Ops 7 was not received very well. And that brand is really, I'm not going to sit here and say it's circling the drain because it still is one of the most successful selling games every year, if not the most successful. But it really does feel like that brand is in limbo right now, at least creatively. That being said, Game Pass was kind of Phil Spencer's big baby. He essentially took the idea that the Xbox One originally had, was the check-in thing, the always online connection, the 24-hour check-in, and that's what Game Pass became. You can kind of connect those dots behind the scenes and like realize that like Game Pass is a subscription service. You have to be online to play these games. That all, they kind of just retooled that into Game Pass. And again, Game Pass, the value is there when it started. Obviously, throughout Game Pass's existence, the price hikes, would happen and stuff. But between just disastrous decisions the last couple of years, we have obviously, no longer having console exclusives with the Xbox, which has proven time and time again to really damage the Xbox brand. Now everything comes out on everywhere. Obviously, you can just pay for the subscription to have Game Pass, which is what Microsoft really wants you to do. But they're also happy to just sell you the game over on PS5 or Nintendo Switch or Switch 2 or whatever if the game is available there. And it kind of seemed for a while they didn't really care where you were playing. So we have that aspect of it. We have the Series X as it currently stands has been price hiked 3 different times now. And I know some people can make the argument, and again, tariffs do factor into it somewhat, but you also have to factor in the RAM shortage, the GPU shortage issues right now, and all that skyrocketing because of AI, as well as I think Microsoft's just being greedy. I'll put it this way. Last October, I made the decision to trade in my second Series X. I own 2 Series X systems. I had one out in my living room, and then I had one in the office behind me here. And I realized I hadn't turned that system on in about 6 months. So GameStop, which we can chuckle about it, but they offered me $340 store credit on a system that I bought for $400 in 2022. So I lost about $60 out of that. And I used that credit just to buy most of the games I wanted to buy last fall and up to this spring. So, and I haven't looked back. I have not missed having a second Xbox. I mean, now I have a PS5 Pro out in my living room, which I've had for a while. And then I have my base PS5 behind me here. And I haven't looked back. It's ridiculous to me that, 3 years later after buying that system, I was able to trade it in for such a high value. But that's the point I'm trying to make. There's nobody out. Like, I don't know anybody that would rush out today and buy a Series X system. I don't know what the value of that is, because now you have 3 different price hikes that have happened for the console. You have the multiple price hikes that have happened in Game Pass, where now Game Pass is $30 a month. And yes, you can make the argument. A lot of people make the argument like, yeah, I can afford $30, but what value am I actually getting out of the same thing that was $20 a couple months ago? What has changed about that? Nothing. They just raised the price because they fucking felt like raising the price, right? So that presents another issue. And I know a lot of people let their subscriptions lapse. As far as I go, I had originally done one of those crazy deals in 2022 where you could buy 3 years of Game Pass, super heavily discounted, and I stacked it for 3 years. And my Game Pass was going to expire in October, like right before the price hikes. I hadn't played a game since Doom: The Dark Ages, but I got to this point where I kind of started to panic because I'm like, oh man, like in 20 years, I've never let my gold subscription lapse. And so I quickly went out and got another 3 months before the price hike, added it to my subscription, which ended in January. And I just said to myself, well, you know, if there's something cool this fall, I'll play it on Game Pass. I did not use Game Pass the entire 3 months that I added at all. I didn't install a single game, play anything that 3 months. And that's when I had the realization for me personally that, wow, this brand really is dead. You know, and so I let my subscription lapse in January and I haven't looked back. Like, I'm at the point now where if there's a game I want to play, I play it on PS5, I play it on Steam. I really should turn my Switch 2 on more, but that's a totally different conversation. But I say all this and I bring all of these things up to say, like, I am the guy when it comes to Xbox. I am the person that was entrenched in their ecosystem, and now it just really feels like it's dead. There's a comment in the press release, or the words that this Asha wrote, the new CEO of Xbox. And there's one part I want to point out, and I'm not going to take credit for this, but I think it's a great analogy that was brought up on Jeff Gerstmann's podcast, and I 100% agree with this, is that in wrestling with Vince McMahon, there's certain words that Vince McMahon would not want you to say. Like using the term wrestling, for example, he wants you to use the term sports entertainment. One of the words at Microsoft that Satya Nadella, the CEO, specifically says he hates is calling things AI slop. So I find it really ridiculous that in this woman's first post, one of the bullet points that she puts out there is, we will not have, and I'm paraphrasing, but we will not have AI slop overtake this ecosystem or this machine or whatever. And that really rubs me off in the wrong way, to the point of being like oh, this is your, hey, fellow gamers, hey, fellow kids moment. Like, that's what it is. And between her getting out there on like Twitter, and saying things like, what would you like to see and stuff like that. There was somebody who tweeted at her, was like, can we bring the blades back? And she said, yeah, I hear you. What? And this is where we get to the like scuttle, and I'm not going to name names, but we have Xbox centric people on YouTube that are just going to keep shilling for this until the checks stop clearing. Let's be honest. But you are fooling yourselves if you think that Microsoft all of a sudden is going to go back on this exclusivity thing and go, no, actually our games are all exclusive now. It will never happen. They've already tasted the forbidden fruit, so to speak. They're greedy and they're getting the money. They're not going to turn that off to give some sort of win for gamers. Like, what would that win be for them now? They have 30 million people in their ecosystem, according to the sales of the Xbox Series X, right? But how many more sales are they making on their software outside of that? And that's the question you have to ask yourself. A lot more. So they can cater to a much wider and broader audience. So they're not going to all of a sudden just go, oh yeah, all the games are exclusive because that's what the kids want. That's not going to happen. And if that's the mindset that you have, you are fooling yourself. You're on the Titanic and you're sinking with it. Secondly, the original Xbox founder, creator, whatever you want to call him, and I'm probably paraphrasing him, I'm probably butchering it, but Seamus Blackley, I think he was the original designer of the original Xbox, came out and just straight up said, like, this person is being put in this place to sunset this division of Microsoft. And I have to say, I 100% agree. That's exactly what's happening here. And I think long-term Xbox fans, I think these Xbox-centric YouTube channels and people are fooling themselves into believing a false narrative here. That, oh, this person is going to come in and they're going to change everything and make it better for Xbox gamers. That's not going to happen. The person they put in charge used to work in Core AI for Microsoft. What is Microsoft wanting to become in 2026? A Core AI company. That's all they fucking care about. Satya Nadella has said it many times, and that is where their future is. That future doesn't include Xbox. Now, I will say this, because it's going to come up. Somebody's going to make a comment in this video. Somebody's going to say something. There will be a new Xbox. They've already made the hardware. Like that hardware already exists. They're getting ready to announce that hardware. As far as like how much it's going to cost, I don't know. Sarah Bond always was playing real coy, was saying it will be expensive. You know, I think at one point she even said it'd be over $1,000. It's not going to sit well with people today. People cannot afford $1,000 Xbox machine. It's not going to work. Yes, you'll have certain people that will do it, but it's not going to work. Not at that price point. And not when your ecosystem is, hey, well, you could buy our box, but you could also just go play it on PlayStation. We'll sell you the game there. So there's just this ridiculous cooked narrative. And I look at this and I just like, so I look at stuff like IGN's been running Podcast Unlocked. I think they just had their 730th episode. What the actual fuck is that show about in 2026? Like, what are they talking about every week? Because the brand is dead. Like, what are you talking about? So I feel for Xbox people. I feel for Xbox fans. I was one. I am one. I have 2 original Xboxes. I have multiple 360s. I think I have one Xbox One somewhere, and I have my Series X. You know, I have like hundreds of Xbox games between the multiple different systems. I have a 360 collection. I have an original Xbox collection. I love that brand, but that brand at this point is dead. And I think people need to start accepting that reality and move on. And the sooner that you do, and I really think Microsoft should just embrace being a publisher too. Like, you're already putting these games out, like Forza, like Fable is coming out day and date with the Xbox version and PlayStation and PC this fall. Forza, for whatever reason, Forza 6 is going to take a little longer, but like, what does that tell you? It tells you their future is in publishing games. But I also think that like we've seen a lot of high profile projects be canceled in the last year. Perfect Dark is a primary example. And I think outside of some of these big projects like Fable, Forza, the Gears game will come out probably this fall. This Halo, what is it called? Halo Campaign Re-Evolved or something like that. Those will come out, but things after that, I would question what's going to happen. The last thing I want to point out in this video, and this is kind of just a me rambling rant video. You know, we talk about Phil Spencer, and like I said, I don't want to discredit the good things he did, but I don't want to forget the bad things and the poor decisions he made. But the single most disappointing decisions that he made, in my opinion, have to do with squandering the Halo franchise as it's known. This is a man who, in the 12 years that he ran Xbox, he allowed a terrible fucking studio to run that franchise into the ground. Between a horrible entry in Halo 5, that I don't know many people that like it, to the shambled release that was Halo Infinite. Now, again, before people get their pitchforks, Halo Infinite is a fine product today. But look at how long it took to get that game out. And then it was supposed to be a live service game, and they didn't know how to support it as a live service game in terms of the multiplayer. But then go back and look at the Halo 1, 2, 3, Reach. I'll even give 343 credit for Halo 4. I think Halo 4 is a pretty fucking good game. But that was a franchise that was on top of the world 15 years ago. A little bit longer than 15 years ago. And now it's all but dead. There will be people that will, like myself, I'll check out Halo Combat Re-Evolved or whatever the new like remake of a remake of a remake is that comes out. Because of course I love Halo. Halo is one of the greatest franchises of all time, in my opinion, for video games. But I cannot help but be disappointed out of all the decisions and all the things that were fumbled through for Xbox throughout the years. Halo just was a major pillar of what Xbox was, and they fumbled it. And that was under Phil's leadership. It's also baffling to me that Phil's out, Sarah Bond's out, but Matt Booty stays. Guy that's currently the head of games that really seems like he needs some help, like really strongly needs someone to help him out with some of these release dates and keeping an eye on the 38 fucking studios that Microsoft owns now. But instead, we just let projects go for years, and some of them get canceled. Some of them maybe see the light of day, but they're never that good. Like, where's State of Decay 3? It's been in production since 2019. Where the fuck is that game? I don't know. And that's the point I'm trying to make. I think that the wrong people may have been let go here. I don't know. I do know as more comes out, Sarah Bond, it seems like a lot of the reason she was let go is because she really pushed that this is an Xbox narrative, and that did not work, not only externally, but internally. The Xbox, the people that work in that division did not like that direction at all. So I say all that to say I'm very interested to see what happens as this goes forward. If there is any kind of future for this brand, I don't see it, but you know, there could be a future there. I'd love to know your comments and thoughts, which you can leave in the comments below. It's really redundant of me to say it that way. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.